by working at a school from 9 to 3, it just gave me lots of hours free time, when I just decided maybe there was something else I could do. And I guess I have found myself as an accidental advocate for cancer patients. And then once I got invited to be a part of the trust fund, I've now spent the best part of 9 years but trying my absolute hardest that no family goes through what we went through.
Yeah. Welcome to a new journey. I'm your host, Matt Griffith. With me today is a teacher's aide, cancer survivor, and chair of the Albury Cancer Centre Trust Fund, Michelle Hensel. Michelle, hello. Thank you for popping in.
Oh, I'm absolutely excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, it's going to be really quite fascinating. I think in the public eye, you can obviously be defined by tragedy or hardship, and people just know you through that frame. So to fill in the other parts of your life and extensive experience, it's going to be really fascinating. So we'll go through it all, and we'll start at the very beginning.
Yep.
Your connection with Albury, Wodonga and the region itself. You are born and bred in the region, Michelle?
In Colcan. So I haven't ventured that far, and married a Colcan boy. Did go to uni in Canberra though, so I did leave for 3 years, but we come straight back to this community. It's a wonderful community, and I've never wanted to venture any further, really. So quite happy to say that I'm a local through and through. Yeah.
So were you so you were born, as you said, in Colcan. What did your parents do?
Farmers,
Yes.
farmer's daughter. Yeah.
Was it an idyllic childhood on the farm?
I guess so. But we used to, we all used to work pretty hard on the farm. And 2 of my brothers are still on the farm. There's six of us all up. But I guess I still always knew that I wanted to go to uni. I studied science in Canberra, and I always knew that I did still want to go to uni. And in fact, I've been with my husband since I was 16. So always knew that's what I was going to do, but then I was going to come straight back, and so we come back straight here, and married here locally, and have always been part of this community. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. Don't fly through it all, though, Michelle. We're gonna touch on all of it, because I want to know where you went to school.
I went to school in primary school in Colcan St. Joseph's Catholic Primary School, which is a very tiny primary school. We only had like 60 kids in the whole school, so you grew up with only 2 or 3 in your class. And then I actually decided that I wanted to come in. It was St. Joseph's girls' school then. I was the first inaugural year of Xavier High School.
Xavier,
we went co-ed in year 12.
So that's a fair journey.
Yeah, on a bus
every day.
On a bus every day, and then in year 11 and 12 I boarded, but only Monday to Friday. Which meant the boarders thought I wasn't really a boarder, and the day students thought I wasn't really a day student. But that helped with the homework, because when you're on a bus every day, each way, it was like a good hour and a half each.
Of course,
even though the bus was parked in our farm shed, which was pretty cool. It still took a long time to get to
parked in your farm shed,
which was really good in winter. I assure you. So you just got up, walked down, got on the bus.
Were your parents supportive of you wanting to expand and go to uni? Probably not initially.
They
wanted you to stay local.
Yeah, just like Dad was sort of like, really, what's the point? But I loved science, and I loved studying medical scientists, and worked in pathology for 30 years, which was a great...
Yeah. So went to university in the city, did you say?
Yeah, in Canberra, yeah. But when I graduated, we were always just coming straight back. So worked through various pathology labs in Albury, and it was a great career, because I got to work at night and at the weekends, and as our kids grew up, my children never actually got babysat, which was pretty amazing. So my husband would go to work during the day, and I would go to work during the night.
Your husband's
Neville Hensel,
yes, Neville.
Yeah, and it actually really worked for us for 30 years. It's close to 30 years I did that, but eventually it is a little bit tiring working working in the
imagine.
evenings and on the weekends, and just you can never plan your life. So if someone asked me to do something in, say, 6 weeks' time, you never knew what your roster was going to be.
Yeah.
And something that I always thought about being, I guess, was a teacher's aide. So when that part of my life changed, I guess when certain things changed in our life, that was my next career path, and it's been a fantastic career path too. So,
Yeah. Where did you meet Neville?
Just downtown Colcan at the swimming pool. Was not a very big community. Everybody knew everybody.
Yeah.
And it's always, everything's revolved around who someone's father is and who someone's mother is. And so when I said to my dad, can I, because back in the day you asked your dad if you could.
Yeah. How old were you?
I was 16.
16.
And Neville was 20, which is ridiculously probably a large difference when I was only 16. I said, can I go out with Neville Hensel? And my dad said, is his dad Hayden Hensel? And I said, yeah. And he said, of course you can. Because it was all about who you played football with back then. So, and then when I was at school at Xavier, so I was only 16, I was in year 12. Neville was a first grader at Albury Tigers, but I went to school with all the thirds boys. So I had an elevated position in the world.
Yes.
Because I was going out with the first grader. So, and then Neville followed me to Canberra, and he played football at Ainsley Football Club in Canberra. Football was pretty big back then in Canberra. But we knew always that we were just coming straight back to Albury Wodonga, and Neville had a long career as a footy coach and also playing at Albury Tigers and coaching Colcan Football Club to a premiership. So our life revolved a lot around football and his coaching, and then he just went on to coach the kids, playing for St. Pat's Football Club. So football, that community, has always been a huge part of our lives. And as our kids have ventured out, kids venture out into the world, you say, just join a football club. Because
why is it so beneficial?
Because you just instantly have all those, you make new friends. Even when my son, middle son, went to Perth, his main objective was to find a good football club, which he did. And even though he travelled the other side to Australia, you find a football club, and then you've instantly got 25 mates. And it's just that what being in a team teaches you: winning, losing, becoming a leader, if that's what's your pathway. But we've always loved football clubs, and we've been heavily involved also in Thaguna Football Club. I just love football and netball clubs. It's how I grew up. Watched my dad play football. My dad was still playing senior football when I was 13. So
he's a bit of a legend, isn't he, your dad?
Oh well, no, not really, but he loved his footy, and it's just always been a part of my family's life, both sides. Neville's dad as well. Neville's dad won 3 Baz medals for Colcan Football Club. So, it's been a huge part of our lives, and still is a huge part of our lives. Yeah.
Yeah. So it certainly sounds to me like there was never any thought of moving to Melbourne or Sydney.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely
Joining
not.
the rat race.
Albury Wodonga just offers so much for everybody, and if you don't want to leave to study, you don't have to. But even if you do leave to study, it's not very far. It's not very far to go. So, and now my daughter's moved back here. She's a doctor, and she's moved back here. So
so many people do, don't they?
Yeah,
go to
I think
the city and come
sometimes
back.
young people desperately think they want to get away, but as they get a little bit older, they realise Albury Wodonga has so much to offer people in terms of that sense of community and support.
Now, you said you obviously studied in Canberra. Was that a long-distance relationship with Neville at that time?
No, he luckily got a move.
Oh, that's right. He
moved to Cooma, actually, which is still a fair way up the road, but he used to travel to training and travel to play, and then eventually he moved to Canberra.
So when you moved back to the border, you obviously were both on the same page in terms of family. You wanted to start a family. How many kids Have you and Neville?
So I actually got married when I was 20, which is quite young for these days. And we didn't have kids for a while, but then we had 3 children, Braden, Reese and Carla, in fairly close succession. Yeah, and the kids grew up. Here in Albury, Wodonga, going to school here, playing footy here, playing netball here. So yeah, that's it's always been a huge part of our life, staying here and being involved in footy clubs and netball clubs and cricket clubs.
Of the community and being here as well.
Oh yeah, I just love football clubs and cricket clubs. St. Pat's Cricket Club is a huge part of our lives. We still every single Saturday go and watch St. Pat's cricket. I just love that sense, and they wrapped my family in a very big hug when difficult things happened to us, and that's another thing with football clubs, is that when things get tough, a football club will support you on and off the field, and we've always had that, and we've always found that that's what football and netball clubs have done for us.
Yeah.
So, and it's a way also that you can give back as well. So,
well, I did say at the start that in terms of in the public eye, you can be defined by tragedy. I mean, we know that, and a lot of people then put incredible amounts of energy into alleviating that kind of tragedy for other people, which is essentially what you've done over the years. So really, I guess we have to start with yourself, because you were 37?
I was 37 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and before,
so this is 20
just past 20 years now.
Yeah.
And before that, I didn't know anyone that really had any cancer. No one in my family had cancer.
Yeah. And you were working in pathology.
You were working
in pathology at the time,
which actually probably helped me get my diagnosis in a way, because one of my good friends got diagnosed with breast cancer, and I just said flippantly, I better get my little lump checked out. And I actually had a mammogram and an ultrasound, and they were declared negative, that I was fine. But I think because I worked in pathology, I said I'll have a biopsy of my lump done. And everybody said, you don't need it, it's unnecessary. And I said, no, I want it. And luckily nobody said I couldn't.
Yeah.
They just kept saying it's not necessary, so at no point, all this time, all that actually took 2 months, but I was never worried. And I had the biopsy done, I'm still not worried. And then my mum said, have you chased up those biopsy results? I said, oh, actually I haven't. And I rang the doctor's surgery, and over the phone, the doctor said to me, oh, actually, Michelle, you do have breast cancer. And I need you to get some more tests, and I'll see you in my office in a week. And I said, you'll see me in your office in an hour. And from that point on, he was a wonderful man, and we got on famously well. But I said to him, I got a negative mammogram and ultrasound. I said, 99.9% of women would run with that.
Yeah, that's frightening.
They would take that and go with that. And he said, yeah. So because I got it early, and because I had a mastectomy, I was spared treatment. So I was actually spared chemo and radiation.
Yes.
Unfortunately, though, on my yearly checkup on the other side, I had some abnormal changes, and they said, we're not prepared to call this cancer. We're prepared to call it pre-cancer, and you have to keep an eye on it. I said, you don't keep an eye. You don't wait for cancer to come.
It's like under the sword of Damocles.
Yeah, so I had the other breast off as well. And my kids were only like 12, 10 and 7. And that was pretty young for them, I guess. But they handled it really well. We always told them the truth. And funnily enough, if you're old enough and remember McLeod's Daughters, the main character in that test, they gave her breast cancer for 1 week, and then she was fine the next week. And my little daughter said, you'll be okay, Mum, because Tess was okay. So I was always grateful that McLeod's Daughters didn't kill the character Tess off. So she was. So they handled it. I guess I was able to say, I'm lucky. It's no longer a part of my body that I need for you kids. I've been lucky so far. So I was able pretty quickly to move on from breast cancer. I realise other people they're not so lucky, but it was huge. it brought so many other positives to me. I was part of Bravehearts on the Murray, and we built that the first dragon boat that anyone in Australia has ever built. And we raced that dragon boat. So lots of positive things happened to me because of breast cancer, and I met so many amazing people. And it was probably, also we made a calendar and raised money. It was probably the start of my connection to cancer patients and what they go through. Yeah.
And of course, at that time, you were living in a place that really didn't have a lot of services for cancer patients, and you had to go to Melbourne to do just about everything, didn't you, at that time? And things have changed, thankfully. A great deal. But that was also, sadly, the case when in what would have been 2011, when your son Braden was diagnosed with what type of cancer? It's one that I'd never heard of.
Incredibly rare and aggressive. It's called Ewing's sarcoma. He was 19, and he was in the prime of his life, I guess, having the greatest time. He had just decided to go off to university at La Trobe University in Bundoora in Melbourne, and he'd come off a footy seconds premiership with Albury Tigers, and was just getting through the finals and a premiership with St. Pat's Cricket Club. We'd taken him down to uni, but he was coming back every weekend for training and to play because they just kept progressing through the finals. And he was saying to us, I've got a sore neck, but he was young. He was also doing footy training, and he was at that, that in between seasons when cricket's merging into football, and he was very excited about playing for La Trobe University Football Club. My brother had been a premiership player there, and that was his goal in life, to just follow his Uncle Joel. And so I said to him, just, get the trainer at the footy club to give you a rub down. And anyway, he's coming backwards and forwards, and then they got in the grand final, and he was playing in the grand final. And he said, my neck really, really hurts. And I still didn't really give him much attention.
Well, you wouldn't really, would you? I mean, everybody talks about...
He was incredibly fit.
Yeah.
He was incredibly fit, and he was still doing everything he needed to do, like playing a grand final. And then he went back to Melbourne and just straight away just switched to football. It was just literally just a week, the same week, just switched to football. And he said, look, my neck's really sore. And so we said, look, go and see a physio. So he went and saw a physio during the week. And then he played the first game of football for La Trobe University. Kicked a handful of goals and actually got best on ground. And then he said, I'm going back to the physio. And he went back to the physio during the next week. And luckily, he said to that physio, from that point when you gave me that rub down the other day, he said, I've had pins and needles in my arms. And luckily for us, that physio, that just was alarm bells. So he sent him, it was late on a Friday afternoon, he sent him to get some scans and lots of scans and x-rays and all that sort of stuff. And I was aware that he was doing that. And my brother had hooked up with him by that stage, which was really good. And then I heard that they'd seen something on a scan. Again, wasn't really worried about it. And then it was quite late. It was like 9 or 10 o'clock at night on a Friday. And a guy rang me up and he said, I'm a neurosurgeon. I have your son here with me at the Epworth Hospital in Richmond. And I don't understand where you live, and I don't understand how long it's going to take you. But you need to get in your car and you need to drive because your son has a tumour wrapped around his spine and it's squashing his spine. And I need to operate on it straight away. I don't really remember having conversations with my other children. They were old enough. They were 17 and 14. I think I must have just said, we're going to Melbourne and you guys play footy and netball tomorrow and we'll get back to you. But he had an emergency operation, which the surgeon said that he actually probably didn't have very long to live at that stage because the tumour was squishing his spine, that they said it would just move up his arms and into his respiratory system, and he would have had trouble breathing. So that amazing surgeon in Melbourne, Mr. Ian Wang, initially, right at that point, saved his life. And then we waited quite a few days for the pathology result. And because I worked in pathology, I just knew as each day went past that this was not anything routine or normal. It just took days, and they just kept saying, we're just not really sure what it is. And I was just like, this is not good. Anyway, it took a best part of a week for them to determine that it was a Ewing sarcoma, which is very rare, and unfortunately not many people survive it. So Braden had to have instantly, as quick as we could, he had to recover from the operation as such, but he needed chemotherapy and radiation at exactly the same time, because although the surgeon operated on it, he couldn't actually get it all, and it was now literally growing at an alarming rate. So we moved over to Peter Mac. Peter Mac, it's the old Peter Mac, it's not the new Peter Mac, but they believed...
this is in Melbourne.
In Melbourne.
Still for those.
So, yeah. So we just instantly found ourselves being in Melbourne, which was hard for everybody. In the end, what actually happened is I moved to Melbourne for 12 months. So the rest of the family stayed behind. My husband and my middle son Reese was doing HSC, so he, of course, and Carla, 14, was still at school. The hardest part for an adolescent to do, everybody, when they're told they got cancer, their life turns upside down, right? But if you're an adolescent and you're a part of a family, the hardest part is dealing with the fact that you've disrupted everybody's life in your family, that the family life as you know it has turned upside down. And people used to say to us, I can't believe it, like your other son's still playing football and your daughter's playing netball. But we had to, had to, for Braden's sake, they had to still go on with their lives. And yes, it was hard. Reese was doing the HSC. He wasn't overly fond of studying. But you had to just keep on with your lives. And my husband had to work back here because I'd left my work. The community was incredibly generous. They had a fundraiser for us. Dipper come down. And people raised money for us, and they had Braden's bucket. This is before the days of GoFundMe, I guess. So they had a Braden's bucket that used to go around to events, and people would give us money. We were generously, from an ex-Albury girl, given a unit in Melbourne, which we were allowed to stay in free of charge. I just had to pay the bills. So Braden and I lived in Glen Iris and travelled to Peter Mac nearly every day. Braden had a debilitating chemo regime, which he would have chemo for 12 hours a day for 5 days as an inpatient, and then you would get out for 2 weeks and 2 days, and then you would start again. And at first he had radiation every day as well to try and shrink the tumour. He also stayed connected to La Trobe University. The hardest part with cancer diagnosis is that you feel like you've lost control of all aspects of your life. But, and that's luckily at Peter Mac, they have a group for adolescents called On Track. And they believe that adolescents need to stay connected to their life. The first doctor we ever saw said, Braden, you've got to give up all your sport and all your uni. And he was like, well, who am I? What am I? So I'm just a sick kid. And we said, no, you're not. No, that's not who you are. So he was able to still do his university work through La Trobe University. And it was just the little things. It was just doing an assignment and achieving it and passing it, or doing a little exam. And so they were incredible at allowing him to still do that. He stayed connected back here to St. Pat's Cricket Club and stayed connected down in Melbourne through La Trobe University Football Club. So we were incredibly lucky. It was terrible for us as a family how hard that was financially and socially and psychologically. And it changes everything. But the most important part for a cancer person is keeping your identity and staying connected to who you are. Whether for older people, you know, we need them to stay here in Albury Wodonga and stay connected to their families, to their workplace. Some people are able to still go to work and have their cancer treatment, and that is awesome. You still want to be who you are, especially the hope always is that you survive and that you want to keep those connections. So Braden had an absolutely debilitating treatment for 12 months, but he did get through that.
Yeah.
And for a while, his cancer disappeared. And it was, you know, almost miraculous. But they did say to us with a lot of certainty that it will come back. But because he'd kept his connections, he was able to go back to uni. He was never, ever, ever able to play football again because of the nature of his operation. But he was able to come back here to St. Pat's and play cricket and still keep all those aspects of his life. And that's why it's so important that to all the people in Albury Wodonga region that they are able to stay here and access our cancer centre.
Yes.
And be able to keep what the little parts of their life normal. Like, it's just the little tiny things sometimes in the end. When we were in Melbourne, I used to get my brother's dog from the other side of Melbourne, and he would come to our house so that Braden could pat a dog. We lived next door to an oval, and it was football and cricket, and it's just all those little tiny things that you're desperate to keep. And so if all our Albury Wodonga patients can stay here, and hardly, you know, we would love it that one day nobody has to travel to Melbourne.
Absolutely.
That they can access everything that they want here.
Would any of Braden's treatment, if you had the cancer centre at that time, would he still have had to?
It's a very good question because unfortunately his cancer is extremely rare. Even to this day, it's still rare. He would probably most likely, unfortunately, still have to go to Melbourne. But there would have been other smaller things that we could have accessed. We used to drive down there for scans. We used to drive down there for PET scans.
And you wouldn't have to do
we used to drive down there for appointments. Like they would give me an 8:30 a.m. appointment, and I'd say, "Are you kidding me? God. Do I really need 8:30? Can I have something else?" And they'd go, "Why? Where do you live?" So, and you know, or the telehealth that they do now, Zoom appointments. Like, it's just there are ways of doing, and you know, we would have had access to a cancer care coordinator, and they could have coordinated all those little things.
Yes.
I instantly had to become an expert on so many things that I knew nothing about.
Yeah.
You know nothing, and you have to become an instant. And so I was.
Of course. How different was it compared to facing your own mortality and battle with cancer? How much worse, I would imagine, is it?
That's a great question. That's a great question, Matt. And you have to become an instant. And so I was.
Of course. How different was it compared to facing your own mortality and battle with cancer? How much worse, I would imagine, is it?
That's a great question. That's a great question, Matt, because watching your child go through cancer is the hardest thing ever. You know, part of me wanted to put my arm out and say, "Give me the chemo," but that's ridiculous, obviously. But you just watching them suffer and just almost shrink before your eyes, because Braden was incredibly fit. No one ever used to believe when he would go into the cancer centre, because he's still at the start used to look so he had muscles and he was fit and he was healthy, but it was just such a shock that he was actually so sick, and watching them just get sicker and sicker, because he had to have 14 cycles of chemotherapy, watching them just get sicker and sicker each time, but knowing that's their only chance. But watching your child have cancer, the hardest, we had many low points, but I didn't know it was a thing. But Braden had chemo on Christmas Day, and they just dropped that in passing one time that, next week when you have chemo on Christmas, and I was like, what? How can you have chemo on Christmas Day? So we all were there that week. We all went in Christmas morning and watched him have chemo, and that's tough. That's tough on everybody.
Yeah.
But Melbourne at Christmas means that Melbourne there's next day's Boxing Day, and he was able to go to the cricket.
Yeah.
And Albury Wodonga community got us into a box. Like, we had a great, if that's the right word, he had a great experience at Boxing Day test and got to go into the commentator's room and everything. So
terrific.
Yeah, so we used to have some positive experiences, but as a family, it was really tough.
I want to focus on how it shaped you. So, unfortunately, I have to say for those that don't know, that Braden did pass away in 2014.
Yep.
And it just must have been obviously completely devastating. Did you have an inkling of what you were going to do and how you were going to spend your energy from that point on fairly soon, or did it take
Not really.
a while?
It took a little while, I guess. And, all that time when Braden was really sick and then Braden passed away, that's when our amazing Albury Wodonga community rallied and got themselves a cancer centre. And so I wasn't a part of that. I wasn't a part of those people that, went to Parliament and did everything like amazing what they actually did. But then I guess I started talking to people and I started hearing about the cancer centre, and I found out about the trust fund. And
Were you still working in pathology?
Yeah,
at the time?
Still working in pathology then. But I guess not long after Braden passed away, Neville and I both quit our jobs and just took different pathways. And by working at a school from 9 to 3, it just gave me lots of hours free time, when I just decided maybe there was something else I could do. And I guess I have found myself as an accidental advocate for cancer patients. And then once I got invited to be a part of the trust fund, I've now spent the best part of 9 years but trying my absolute hardest that no family goes through what we went through. And it's just all the little tiny things. And we want that cancer centre to be, it's a pretty big jigsaw puzzle, and we just keep trying to fit another piece of the jigsaw puzzle in there to make sure that that their journeys are complete, that they have access to everything that they should be allowed to have access to. Just because we're regional, we should have the same things as our metropolitan counterparts. They don't, yes, they have better chances of survival than us, but we're slowly closing the survival rates, and just allowing people to stay here, be true to themselves, have their support, whether that's your family, whether it's your workmates, whether it's your sporting club, to just have those people be close by to you and help you, take you to appointments. That's what people say to me, that they just can't believe that hospital can be around the corner from their house. I've literally had friends, they said, I can go around the corner to my house and have my chemo or have my radiation and just come straight back. People can have radiation and still go to work every single day. Like that is amazing.
Yeah. And before the cancer centre, was that available at all at the base hospital?
No, it was over at Wodonga.
It was over at Wodonga.
Yeah.
But, I mean, obviously the facility wouldn't have been anywhere.
Yes, it was a lot older.
So, 2014, it's a while ago. It's more than a decade, but it's not really. It's not. Yeah.
Doesn't seem like.
It doesn't seem that way, does it? Would you say that your family has recovered? I mean, is that even a word that you can use? Because I would imagine, I mean, most people who would be talking to you would be thinking, I don't know what I'd be like individually or as a family if that happened.
Yeah, it's not so much about recovering, it's moving forward with grief being a part of you. You take it with you in everything you do. I'm extremely, extremely proud of my children. How
did they cope?
It was devastating for them. In the end, Carla was doing the HSC when Braden actually passed away. And she had already decided by that stage, a few years before that, she wanted to be a doctor. So it was really hard for her to do the HSC, and she had to sit her UMAT exam 2 weeks after Braden passed away. It's an exam that's held on one day in Australia, be there or be square. We travelled to Shepparton for her to sit that exam, but she got no special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you manage the grief collectively and individually?
Yeah, it's pretty tough, and Neville and I actually threw ourselves into the Thaguna Football Club as committee people. Honestly, the best thing to do is to be busy.
Yeah.
Be incredibly busy.
Yeah.
So Carla went off to university to be a doctor. She went to Sydney, and Reese went to Melbourne to be a greenkeeper down in Melbourne. And then he went on to Perth, and he's had a great career there in greenkeeping. And Carla is now, I'm proud to say, a doctor back here in Albury, Wodonga.
Yeah.
So, my kids, been so proud of them, the ability to just keep on moving. But, Braden, there's a lot to be said for knowing that someone's going to pass away. So he got to talk to the kids. He got to, leave them letters, and he just for them to know that he wanted them to just keep on keeping on, and not. It's easy to get stuck down in your grief, but you have to find a way to literally just take on the next day. That's all we ever did.
Yeah.
Always said it's just about tomorrow.
With and I don't obviously have any stats or even any experience directly of this, but I would imagine that a lot of people would just want to run as far away from the thing that caused the tragedy as possible. As in, I don't want to think about cancer. I don't want to talk about cancer. I don't want anything to do with cancer. You did kind of the opposite in that you deal with it as a subject,
embrace it,
and the people who have been diagnosed by being on the board of the Cancer Centre Trust Fund. So, what did you have to make that decision, or did it just come naturally?
No, it just come naturally. It just come naturally that nobody should have to go through this. Like what we went through as a family, nobody should have to do that. So for me, it was easy. It's just the obvious choice of changing the outcome for other people. And you may not always change the final outcome, but you can change the journey. Yeah. Changing the journey for people was important to me, I guess. And the other thing is, for the best part of 10 years, I've still been able to talk about Braden, and I love that. So I'm very happy to talk about him whenever I can. Yeah. And so you can do is talk about the experience that we had, and hope that other people don't have to have that experience. Give me
some just some quick highlights of your time on the board and what you've achieved.
Oh, that's it. That's interesting. I guess it's just a continuous growth of the trust fund, making people be aware of the trust fund, and now this generous community, which year after year, I feel that Albury Wodonga have a sense of ownership of the Cancer Centre, and unfortunately, so many people have to go through the Cancer Centre now, and people just want to give back. And so to just have that continuous growth, when we first started with the trust fund, we used to sort of just quietly say, imagine if you could get $1 million a year. And we do that now. $1 million a year is raised here at Albury Wodonga to improve Cancer Centre services. So I just think it's that growth, that potential growth, which just, thank heavens, just keeps on going. And we have those signature events, the Sunshine Walk and the Sunshine Ride, where people just know that they're giving back. And so sometimes it is in memory of somebody that they've lost, but sometimes it's just because they know that someone near them has gone through so much, and they just want to stand by them. So the Sunshine Walk gives people that opportunity, because it's just a walk. So if 5Ks, 10Ks or 20Ks, and you can maybe still be walking beside your person, and it's just a way of giving back to the community. But some of the highlights, I'm just always enormously proud of the Wellness Centre, because the trust fund fully funds the wellness centre.
Yeah.
And to have those services available. Yes,
kind of
at the front.
To it. And
yes.
I remember when it was open, actually, which would have been about 2015 or
2016, yeah.
16.
Yeah. And to know that people can access a psychologist and access support groups and just have a cancer care coordinator, have those people connected directly to them and have them be available. It's just amazing, yeah. And I always think, do I have a favourite thing? But I love that we do research right here in Albury, Wodonga. Another of our pillars is education, and sometimes the medicos come from Peter Mac and educate our staff here. And the day that some of Braden's nurses came here and conducted an education day was, like, to me, that was just full circle for me. I couldn't believe it. I just saw them standing there in the room and they locked eyes with me and we just couldn't believe it. So there's been huge pieces of equipment, sometimes pieces of equipment in the cancer centre cost in excess of $300,000. And, I know directly that is changing people's lives as well. So I don't really have an actual favourite. It's just the combination of everything we do.
Yeah.
And know that the list is endless.
Well, time has run away from us, and it's been a little bit different. This one, we often use some kind of stock questions, but it's been such a fascinating journey and so profound. The things that have happened to you that we really needed to dig down into that. And I think I guess this sums up the impact as well that Braden had. A number of people mentioned to me his cricketing expertise and how he was regarded in the community. To honour his legacy, St Pat's named the Best and Fairest Award after him, and that must mean so much to you, especially outside of just playing the game of cricket, the club itself. Yeah, that's a huge honour to us, and one that is bestowed on us every single year. And every single year it gets me, and the boys love it, they treasure it, they honour it, they want their name on that trophy. And for us to be able to pay back in just a tiny little way, that what they did for us, what they did for Braden, they gave him so much purpose in trying to live longer and play cricket. He would have chemo and come back and still play football on a Saturday. And when he walked out on a cricket pitch, he wasn't a cancer patient. He was just Braden Hensel. Yeah. And when he died a sportsman, and for that we were so grateful that he was still doing what he wanted to do, which was be a sportsman, and for his legacy to continue like that on the Best and Fairest trophy. And even Latrobe Football Club, he to play one game, but then he kept on being associated with that football club, and he inspired them, and they named a trophy after him too. And I don't think there'd be too many people in the world who play one game of football and have a trophy named after them. Oh, that's brilliant. But that's really special as well. So we have so many opportunities of still honouring his legacy, which we're grateful for. Michelle Hensel, thank you so much for your time and your journey. It has been absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much. No, thank you. As I said, an opportunity to talk about Braden is something that we're grateful for. He lives on in our lives, and he lives on in the lives of his friends, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to once again talk about him. Thank you.